What's up, guys? Let's modify mind test, shall we? You have no idea how long this is taking me to record. Last time, we were talking about registering nodes, and we were defining them with like a texture. Maybe we made them glow. Pretty cool stuff, but it's limited, and we want to do more. We want the nodes to do stuff while we're playing. We want to be able to interact with the nodes. So how do we do that? Well, briefly, let me explain how your game loads. Okay, so here we have the mind test engine, the core. It's running these files to set up maybe the framework of the game. Here we have some of the settings, whether you have mountains, whether you have valleys, whether you have some of the mind test default mods. And then here we have your mod. And this is all run only one time at the very beginning of the game. And we saw this a few episodes or lessons ago when we were adding the if statement to our mod. In that case, what we did was we generated a random number one time at the very beginning of the game. Based on that number, we chose the texture for the block. And for the remainder of that game, it would stay the same. Now, it changed when you got out of the game and got back in. That's because it reran your code when it was setting up, initializing the game. And that's what that loading bar is. It's running all that code and setting the game up. Now, what if we want to actually interact, or we want that node, instead of it just being able to be placed, we want maybe when you place it, it then waits 3 seconds and then blows up. That would be pretty cool. And that's more of like a dynamic definition, depending on the location of that node, depending on who's around that node. So this brings us into a really exciting and fun realm of actions and callbacks when defining your nodes. And I've shown you this here, on_use. So callbacks, they're these predefined words, one of them being onUse, that mind test has defined and linked to a certain action. OnUse is when you left click that node. And when you do that, if you have defined it, or let's just say you haven't defined it, mind test will go with its default action. And in most cases, that's just nothing. Now, if you define onUse, then what do you set it equal to? True or false, like we did with textures? Do we set it equal to a PNG? No, it's not that simple. I wish it were. And, maybe the day will come when mind test understands that when you set it equal to a picture, you want the texture to change. But we're not there, and we probably will never get there. So what do we set it equal to? Well, you set it equal to a function. And these functions can be really fancy, and hopefully we get there. You can define them yourself, which is where I'd like to get. But for today, we're just going to go with the predefined functions that mind test provides. And where do we see these functions? Because there are a lot of them. Well, there's a certain word you've got to remember, and that is methods. All right, and then just for those of you who learn with text, methods is the word. That's the key word here. So methods, they are functions. And so what you can do is you can set them equal to onUse. They perform certain functions, really cool functions. Some of them are really, really fun to use. But at the end of the day, they limit us, and we don't want to be limited. We want to do more than what they provide. But for today, that is all that we need to know. Let me take you on over to the methods page. So first, we were greeted with this warning. And you do want to heed this warning. Not all the information in this document, the Wikipedia page, is accurate. And so if you run into trouble, that could be a part of your trouble. So most of these things, most of these methods that are referenced are also in the Lua API. The mind test API reference. And one of those references is fairly nice to look at, and it is accessed through mindtest.gitlab.io. And if you Google that, that should take you just about right here. And at any rate, let's go back to this Wikipedia page, which nicely packages everything together. I'm not saying that the API reference doesn't do that. I'm just not as familiar with it at the moment, so I may have to change that position in the future. However, here we are. Category methods. Now, methods, as you can see, and I don't know, I haven't covered this example. So, pause. Head on over to the Luanti, go to the callback section. It's in chapter 3, actions and callbacks. And here they give the onUse callback as an example. And they write out the code as such. Now they say onUse equals, and they set it equal to something. Well, what is this? Well, this is actually a mindTest method. And it's the item_eat method. And this method is fairly nice. What it does is it gives you health, and depending on the number that you add here, it'll add a certain amount of health. So some of you have already seen that and messed around with it, and that's really cool and awesome. But I want you to basically, I apologize. Let me first show you the different callbacks. So there are a lot of callbacks, and they are accessed through the Wikipedia page for mindtest.register_node. And this is the easiest way to seal them all in one place. Here we have primary callbacks on construct, on destruct, after destruct, and each of these is defined and described in these various locations if you click on them. So again, that is in the register_node. You can see many more callbacks. So for today, what I want you to do is start messing around with the callbacks. Now, bear in mind, this is not exactly easy, and yes, you will have trouble. But it is a lot of fun. So, try out some callbacks. I want you to try, let's just say, 3 different callbacks at the very least, and I hope you take this even further. But what do you set it equal to? What do you set these callbacks equal to? Well, that brings us to the methods. And this is where you need to go through the methods. Let me point out really quick that not all methods are actually something that you can use. For instance, here we have the mindTest.register_node method, which I don't think you can set equal to a callback. I would find it very strange if you could register a node after the game is started. But hey, maybe. I kind of doubt it though. And so bear that in mind when you are selecting methods to set equal to your callback. Now, here's something that you could do, mindTest.banPlayer. And that certainly could be a dynamic thing when you punch that node and all of a sudden bans the player. Of course, for you, you don't really have any other players and you can only ban yourself. And where's the fun in that, right? Okay, guys, that's what I want you to do. As a reminder, this is going into the description of your node. So far, we've been making nodes. And so in the chapter 3 of the Luanti textbook, it very clearly explains where you need to put those callbacks, okay? And these are lines one after another. I just noticed this script actually wouldn't run because you've got a comma right here, and that's a problem. Just a tidbit here. Every single line that you write needs to be followed by a comma all the way up to the very last one where you do not put a comma. So just a little tip, something that you will probably run into. Just check it. Make sure you got all your commas after each of the lines, except for the last one. That's it, guys. So make sure to smash that turn in button on your Google Classroom. And when the bell rings, class is over.